Well, as you know, every year at this breakfast, we hear from a local cancer survivor to put things into perspective. Why do we do this year after year? And this year, we're fortunate enough to hear from local cancer survivor Bob McGoff. Bob?
It's cancer. I first heard those words in the fall of 2003. After a series of tests and biopsy, doctor confirmed that I had prostate cancer. I had heard that other people that I knew had it, so I talked to a few people, went back to the doctors. My first question was, is this something that can kill me? And the doctor came out with some statistic that it was if untreated, it's the #1 cause of death among males, cancer death among males. Second question was, can we get rid of this? And he said, it's early stages, it's a good prognosis, but there are some complications with surgery. Okay, what are those? He said, the two most prominent things that can happen are incontinence and erectile dysfunction. So I thought to myself, cancer can kill me. I've never heard of anybody dying from incontinence or erectile dysfunction. So I said, Doc, let's go ahead with the surgery. I said, we'll let the pens and Viagra take care of the other problems. The surgery was scheduled for December of 2003. I was coaching at Misericordia at the time, assistant coach with Dave Martin. And for some reason, they scheduled we had a weekday day game at the University of Scranton, the same day as the surgery. December 15th. 2003. Went in for the surgery, and the first thing I remember post-surgery is in the recovery room, and kind of groggily waking up, and my wife was there, and I said, looked up, and I said, how'd we do? And she said, the surgery went well, things the doctor said. I said, no. How did we do? She said, do you want to know the score of the game? You need priorities when you're a coach. Surgery went well. We won the game. Dave Martin showed up with the game ball from December 15, 2003. Keep the ball as a constant reminder of not a game, but of what was and what could be. I also find it strange that the only game ball that I ever got was for a game that I didn't attend. I don't know if they're trying to send me a message or not, but everything went well. And I would like to say that was the end of the story. About a year later, in a routine examination, after a blood test, my doctor said, I'd like you to go see a hematologist. That didn't sound good, but okay, I trust you. Went to the hematologist, and he said, I'd like to do a bone marrow biopsy. If there's anybody out there with any masochistic tendencies, try a bone marrow biopsy. They're a lot of fun. But the test came back. Went back to my doctor. He said, "You have chronic lymphocytic leukemia." That didn't sound good. I just good friend pneumonia had just died from leukemia. When I heard the words, it didn't sound good. He says, no, he says, CLL is not a very aggressive form of cancer. He said, most people die with it, not from it. And he said, all CLL does is it produces a lot of lymph nodes, small lymph nodes, and it compromises your immune system. He said, there's really no treatment, but it can provide complications if, with some other things. And so that was fine. And for a number of years, CLL was not a problem. There was no recurrence of prostate cancer. Until about a year and a half ago, had a kind of a cut or something, a scab on my forehead. And we went to a dermatologist, and he said, yeah, it's a squamous cell carcinoma. I had had it before on my hand again. It didn't seem like it was anything important. He said, I'd like to do what's called Mohs surgery, where they just kind of excise it and work around. He said, it'd be about an hour. I said, office, no problem. Went and had the surgery. After 5 hours of surgery, got out and he said, your skin cancers are a little bit problematic. Because of this CLL, your body doesn't fight off their growth. And so I guess what he told me was that the skin cancers had grown beneath the skin and the roots had spread out. Plus 5 hours of surgery, and he said, in order to be sure, I'd like you to go and get some radiation treatment. So it was in April of, June of 2013, went for radiation treatments. 28 radiation treatments. Finished those. Doctor said everything looks good. About a month later, developed a little lump along my ear. Hard little lump. Again, back to the doctor. He said, need a biopsy? He said, well, it tests for cancer. I said, okay. He said, the problem is that squamous cell carcinomas don't metastasize, usually. He said, we're going to have to do some surgery to remove this. And the other problem was that they have infected your carotid gland, which is the large salivary gland that you have on each side of your face. So, in for another surgery. Remove the tumor that was growing. Remove the carotid gland, which had been infected by cancers. And the big fear was, when it was all said and done, that since this skin cancer was moving, that it might get into the lymph nodes that the CLL produces. And then it becomes very problematic for lymphoma. So this time, after a visit with the oncologist and a visit to Johns Hopkins for another opinion, it was more radiation, only this time we'd like to include some chemo along with it to deal with the CLL. That was November, December, January of last year, this year. 33 radiation treatments, scheduled for 6 chemo treatments. Got through 4 of them before I lost about 35 pounds. It was down to 120 pounds. Finally, the doctor said these treatments are doing more harm than they are good. Finished up the radiation treatments. A couple months later, went for a PET scan. PET scan showed cancer-free. Nothing there. Say good. A month later, another little bump on the side of my head. Back to the doctor. This time he said, well, we radiated here. We must have missed in between. Another tumor growing. This time, you learn a lot of kind of lexicon when you get into the medical profession. This guy gets subcutaneous neurotropic squamous cell carcinoma. Apparently, his skin cancers were growing along the nerves in my face. And again, surgery, and most surgery, again, was maybe an hour, about 1.5 hours later. He had cut away a good portion of my face. Needed to, this time, since they had done so much surgery and removed so much from the right side of my face, required some plastic surgery to put me back together. Thank you, Dr. Morris, who was here today. I don't know if this counts as a visit. I was asking this. But again, the good prognosis, but again, radiation treatments, this time 25 radiation treatments, which thankfully end tomorrow. Hopefully, that's the end. But this is an ongoing battle. I've been lucky. With all that said, I feel that I've been lucky. None of the cancers that I've had have been life-threatening. Like all treating, yes. There's not a day go by that I don't think about what could happen. Could these things become worse? I've also had a great support group, a.k.a. Link and family. It may be cliche, but one of the best things that you can do, if you know of anybody that's going through cancer treatments, one of the best things you can do is be supportive. One of the biggest problems that cancer patients face is depression. It really does affect your mental abilities. And it's great to have people there to support you. If you know anybody, just be a friend. Go and sit and watch a baseball game or a basketball game or a football game with them. Go and talk with them, watch TV, anything. It really does help. And the last thing that I feel lucky about is that we have organizations like Coaches versus Cancer to support cancer patients, cancer survivors. I know many of you here in the audience, and I think the one thing that is common to all coaches, players, we all like to win. None of us get involved in sports, athletics, just to compete. We're winners. We want to be winners. And this fight with cancer, I don't want to compete. I don't think you want to compete with cancer. I don't want to spend the rest of my life just competing with cancer. I want to kick its ass.